Anyway, she just was very cold towards me, and I never knew why. And then when I was in therapy, the therapist suggested that maybe it was because I was my father's favorite. And I never thought that growing up, that I was my father's favorite. You know, I knew my mother had a favorite, and it wasn't me. Who grew up with more than one child in the family? Sibling? Most of you, okay. Did you ever feel like there was an order, like favorite, least favorite in your family? AJ?
Yeah, I did.
Where were you? Up or down?
I was middle. I was middle.
So you weren't the favorite.
Well, it depended. It was my mother and my father. I think I was tops with my father and bottoms with my mother.
Okay, gotcha. That's my brother Joe. And you read in the book about my brother Joe. Mm-hmm. And I did not know any of that. Talk about holes in your memory. I don't know when she did those things to him. It must have been when no one else was home. And I didn't know about them throwing him out and making him, you know, give his paycheck. Oh, well, you know. How about Dale? Do you have your hand up if there's more than one? 1 second. Penny, I'll get you. I'm going to let Dale answer first. Dale, did you want to respond? He's looking for the unmute button, I guess. All right, I'm going to let Penny go. I just look for that. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay, well, as you know, I grew up in a children's home, and I was adopted at 9 months, and then my adopted mother put me into a children's home. And I had two adopted that were much older than me, a brother and a sister. And when you ask if any one of us was a favorite, no, she didn't like any of us. She did not like any of us. She didn't know how to parent. She was very, very abusive. And I got the brunt of it.
Yeah. You have to wonder, like, why someone would adopt children and then, oh, well, they're not what I thought. I'm just going to get them away. They're nothing, which is where a lot of abandonment issues would come from. You know, I mean, that's obvious. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. I want to say hello to Chandra. She's just joining us, Chandra. And I believe you live in Wyoming. Is it Wyoming?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the group. So what we're doing is we're muting ourselves unless we want to say something. Then we're going to put our hand up. And we're up to chapter 3. And we're talking about the effect that our mothers had on us or didn't have on us. And some of us had very cold mothers. And, you know, there's actually research, this I find interesting. There's actually research that the fetus feels and senses things and hears things and can tell if the mother is depressed, the fetus feels depression. I know that sounds out there, but I have the research, the doctors that are doing it. I'm going to read it to you. Christiane Northrup, a pregnant mother's going through high levels of fear or anxiety. If she is, she's creating a metabolic cascade. Okay, so my mother was absolutely not happy that she was pregnant with me. So these hormones known as cytokines are produced, and the mother's immune system is affected, including her child. Well, I have an immune disorder. So I don't know if it came from my mother's anxiety and depression, but here's the science. Chronic anxiety in the mother can set the stage for a whole array of trauma-based results. I do believe that. I think if a mother like my darling granddaughter is having a child and is thrilled and happy and loving while she's carrying that child, the child feels it. My great-grandson was born with a smile on his face. He is the happiest baby I ever saw in my life. I really believe that there's something to this. Yeah. Anyone else want to talk about their mothers? Chandra, how was your mother? Yeah.
So it's actually interesting for me because my mom and I have a pretty good relationship. And there was a fair amount of resentment towards her until I got into adulthood, where I realized that, so my resentment towards her was towards the fact that she didn't protect me from things that she should have been protecting me from. And as an adult, I realized, especially like when it came, because in my household, my dad is he's an alcoholic. He's verbally, psychologically abusive. It's just not great. And then that led to me being vulnerable to other people. And so I resented her a lot for that.
Yeah.
And then some point mid-20s is when I realized that the reason she wasn't able to be the mother that I needed was because she was still trying to survive her own abusive life. And so like my woohoo right now, I'm gonna share this because my mom is also like, we're also a family, like we don't talk about shit and she gets really upset when I say things, but whatever. She has been divorced from my dad for like a week, and it has been like, because last Christmas we moved her and my little brother out in an hour. I was like, no, like you're not taking this shit anymore. I'm sick of it. And so you live with me and I will protect you from all of it. So it's actually been a really interesting year with her living with me because it's the first time she's known about any of my trauma, any of the terrible things that have happened to me. And it's the first time that she's actually started to be able to look at her own situation and go, oh, like I was raised by an alcoholic father who was not the greatest person. And then I married an alcoholic who was not the greatest person.
Yeah.
And like, she just a week ago, she was like, this is the first time I've ever felt free enough to like make my own decision. And she's in her 50s and she's just like, this is the first time I felt like a person in my entire life. And I was just like, yay.
I'm
So
going to stop you right there only because we only have so much time and we lost it at the beginning. But thank you, Chandra. And you know how amazing and what a blessing that you could have this going on with your mother. And also the fact that, you know, we marry our fathers. And many, 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 many women that had alcoholic fathers married an alcoholic. It's just, I don't know why. Oh, I do know why, but we don't tend to. So, did you all notice, did you realize, of course I'm sure you did, that those chapters all had the theme of abandonment? All three, whether it was from alcoholism, whether it's from the cold mother that you didn't get any affection from, the trauma of being left somewhere. I mean, a 5-year-old left in an orphanage for 4 or 5 days is going to feel a little abandoned. And what did they do wrong? So we are going to do this again. And I think now that everybody knows how to get on the Zoom and do the mute and all that stuff, we'll have more time. I really want this to be more time. Any closing comments before I end this? We have about 5 minutes. Anybody want to say anything? I see your hand up. You know why you're like cloudy, your picture, but I see you.
I'm trying to fix that.
Oh, that's
I've got
okay.
2 computers here. One works fine and the other one doesn't work.
Thanks.
Well, that's just a question.
Sure.
Your first husband, Bob Hopple, just kind of drops
He wasn't
off.
my first, he was my second.
But maybe it was a second. Okay, maybe I miscounted. But it seems to drop off in the middle, and he just said he didn't indicate whatever happened. The reason is I think I knew him. I think I played
You
pool
probably
with him.
do. You probably do.
I think I donated a couple bucks to him playing pool over time.
That's him. Yeah. Well, I talk about him up until, the whole marriage, the divorce, all that stuff. He wasn't a good father when he was married to me, and he wasn't a good father after we were divorced. Do you remember the last thing I said in the book about him? Because I don't.
I went back. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I went back to find out. Just said, and then he was gone. It was just something that was quick as that.
Well, it's because every time when I divorced him, he didn't want me to date anybody, even though I was divorced, and he crushed all those leads or relationships or whatever you want to call them. And that's why I remarried my first husband, if you remember the book. I remarried my first husband to protect me against Bob. Okay. And so for 7 years, I had protection from Bob, not from other things. When I divorced Jack, Bob called me, and I think that's in the book, and when he called, I was with my current husband, who I've been with for 34 years. So it's not me, it's them. And I said to him, he would do that. If he saw an opening, and he tried to come back in, and I said, I'm with Jerry Breyer. So not only do I not want to see you, but you have to get a new lawyer, because his lawyer happened to be my husband's brother. So that was a little icing on the cake. Yeah, so I do talk about him till then. And then he's not he does not see his own grandchildren or children, and he lives in the same town.
I thought I saw him many, many years later in Harrisburg, but I don't know for sure.
He did move to Harrisburg because I went to Chambersburg. And
Okay.
if you look back at that part of the book, you'll see that he followed me
Okay.
down there. I
One of the
couldn't get
things-
away from him.
And say hello to Jerry for me.
I
He and I have
will.
been friends. He and I have been friends since
Yeah,
back in the 60s.
I bet. Oh, I saw your name. I knew who you are. Anybody else have a comment on the book, on the session, on wanting to do it again? Penny.
Actually, I'm sorry, I have a cold, but I find this very, very enlightening. And yes, I do think we should do this again.
Yeah. I'm going to try to do it again. I had actually 25 people sign up, but things happen. February 19th, which is the third Saturday, at the same time and the same ID. Now, Carol, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and it's kind of like flying away. I really did enjoy it. Yours is the second book that I read that was a memoir. And the first one was a woman who joined a cult in India in 1971. So your book curled my hair, her book curled my hair, and she's doing very well with that book. It's called The Orange Robe, and it's that's unbelievable.
I'll look that up.
She also had a cold relationship with her family, which is why she did that.
Yeah,
My mother was just controlling. That was my big thing.
Yeah.
She's just always had to be in control of everything. But I really enjoyed your book. I enjoyed her book, and it's given me some impetus to get that novel out there, which I'm still working.
Carol. Yes.
Anyhow.
All right. Brenda, do you want to comment before we close? We have a minute.
Yeah, just a quick thing. When I made my comment before and I said that I had no fear of abandonment, during this discussion, it occurred to me that I had a recurring dream that my parents dropped me off and left with my siblings in the car, and I was in a field by myself. And I had that a number of times. I just remember that. So I had a whole different situation in my home, but I still had that fear of abandonment. And it may have been maybe linked to my mother not protecting me also. And even when I was older and told her things, she still didn't react with anger or, protection.
Yeah.
And so right now I don't have a good relationship with my mother also. But I also want to say very quickly, when you mentioned about your in-laws not approving of this book,
Yeah.
You are helping so many people by laying this honesty in this book. There's so much honesty in this book that people don't admit to other people sometimes all their lives, where you just were just right out with it. And I think that's the only way you could have written it. And so I just wanted to say hats off to you and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And that's